Two names that have come up for the Yankees as we get closer to the trading deadline, and what are they going to do? We know that they are going to be buyers, right? They want to bring in a couple of guys that can help them without giving away too much. David Robertson, former Yankee himself, with the Chicago White Sox, and then Todd Frazier, another name that the Yankees and Brian Cashman might be interested in. What are the Mets going to do? They're going to unload. We know that. How much are they going to unload? Kevin Kernan, New York Post columnist, joins us here on Big Board Sports. Rodger Weiland, Chris Honorado on 104.5, the team, ESPN Radio in Albany. Good morning, Kevin.
How you doing, fellas?
Good, Kevin. Thanks for a few minutes, and certainly all blowing up for the Mets, and we know that they are going to be sellers at the trading deadline. How much selling do you think they are going to do, Kevin?
Quite a bit if they don't ask for too much. The problem you have these days is the GMs ask for way too much on some of these very mediocre players, and if they don't trade them, I think they'll just release a lot of them. I think they'll just move forward. But the Mets, they won't trade any big names, and I would never trade DeGrom either. I agree with Sandy Olson on that, but pretty much everybody else is out there. They also like the young, controllable players. For example, I know the Red Sox have an interest in T.J. Rivera because they're looking for a third baseman, and obviously Todd Frazier too. I'd be surprised if the Mets move somebody like that because they don't have to pay him much, and he's a good hitter. They kept him in the minors way too long, but they finally figured out that he can hit.
Kevin, where do you place blame, or do you place blame anywhere? There's been a lot of injuries, certainly with this Mets team, but this is a team that a lot of people thought would, get to the World Series this year, maybe even have a chance to win it. This was going to be their year, and I know injuries with the starting rotation, major reason as to why not. But do you blame anybody else for the way this season has evolved?
Roger, it's so easy to just say we had injuries. Everybody's had injuries. I think there's two things going on here with the Mets. It's the way the injuries have occurred. They really have a wacky way of getting their players ready. If you ever saw the video of Cespedes working with Mike Barwis, and the problem is we're not allowed to see this stuff. So even if we know that Barwis is working with these guys, we don't know exactly what he's doing. But he did a promotional deal with ESPN and their Sunday Night Baseball people, and to see what they're doing there is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, he's basically lifting 990 pounds of plates, to get his legs in shape, and they do some other things that maybe football players would need to do it. And now the Mets and their front office are stunned, absolutely stunned, that Cespedes has leg issues. Well, if you walked in on the workout, or maybe had any common sense, not half of this stuff wouldn't happen. It's like everything else in baseball now. For the most part, the front offices and whoever, the managers, when it comes to relievers and things like that, there's no common sense anymore. It's a paint by numbers game. It's paint by numbers managing, paint by numbers for your front office, and that's why, for the most part, baseball absolutely stinks across the board right now. It's impossible to watch a whole game, and they've ruined a great game. That's all I can say.
Kevin, I read a bunch of the pieces posted in the New York Post and online specifically about how to fix the game of baseball, and your team over at the Post did a great job with that, because I've been thinking about ways to improve the game, obviously, with so many other people. If you were commissioner for a day, and I know I'm limiting you here, but what would be the number one thing you would like to see changed? Obviously, the talk about a pitch clock, limiting visits to the mound, or would you go bigger?
Yeah, I would go bigger. I would change the way, and this would have to be a change throughout organizations. And the team that does this, by the way, Chris, is just going to move forward. I would change the way they train not only train the players, but the way they treat them in the minor leagues. This whole pitch count thing is just it's fake news. This 100 pitch count limit, where they came up with this number, what it means. Anyone who's played the game knows one pitch is different than another pitch. You may throw 100 pitches one day and it feels like 80. Now, I'm not saying I'm not some old guy on my lawn ranting saying let them throw 200 pitches. I mean, there's got to be some common sense there. but let them do their job. Teach them in the minor leagues how to pitch, and that's the biggest thing I would do. I would extend the pitch counts in the minor leagues, and I would say, okay, you got into this trouble, you got out. Way back when Jack McKean had a young pitcher, who got into such trouble. Jack went out to him in the sixth inning, sends out to him, bases loaded, no out. The guy figured it out, and he went on to pitch for about 25 years in the major leagues, Jim Cott. There's just the way they baby these guys is off the charts. And, of course, now pitchers think they've done their job if they reach their pitch limit and pitch a quality start, which is garbage. And all that, because they can't command pitches, that's why you have strike zone issues. That's why you have issues with the hitters. So it comes back to the pitching and also how they teach hitting. Just letting it fly. That's why I think Dusty Baker has a hand up on everybody, because he's teaching his hitters to let the ball travel and hit it the other way, take advantage of the shifts. And that's one of the reasons why the Nationals' offense is so strong, because Dusty has a common sense hitting approach. And most of these teams are run by guys now who don't know anything about baseball, and as a result, you have bad baseball.
Time with Kevin Kernan, New York Post, on MLB, on the Mets. We'll get to the Yankees here in a second. One more for me on the Mets. I got to ask it. Do you see any way possible that Tim Tebow would be on this Mets team come late August, early September?
I asked Sandy Olson that, and Sandy's a lawyer, so he always hedges. But he said he doesn't foresee that. So obviously the door is not closed. I could see it simply because they want to sell tickets, they want to sell jerseys, and you know what? Here's my point. How do we know? Do we have a crystal ball? Can we say that Tim Tebow's not going to get better? Maybe he will get good enough to get a call up. I mean, some of the garbage they bring up, I'd rather see Tim Tebow, to be quite frank. And so we'll see. I don't think I'll be one of those guys, though, because you'll have a wailing and gnashing of teeth if Tim Tebow comes up. But at that point, if it's meaningless baseball, I could give a darn. And the one thing I go back to is I asked Daniel Murphy about him in spring training, and Daniel worked with him all winter, and he says he needs at-bats. He needs 500 at-bats, but this guy has real power, and, there is a chance. It's a long shot, but there is a chance, and he's worked hard, and he's worked a lot harder than some other people. So I know you're going to be hearing some negative things if he does come up. But I do think there's an outside chance, only because it's the Mets. And in the Mets world, anything is possible to make a buck.
All right, to the Yankees we go. Is this a Yankee team? Obviously, they're split with Boston. Are they going to hang in there in the American League East race, whip the Red Sox the rest of the summer?
Absolutely. I mean, I watched, I came home after doing the Mets series, and I watched the Yankees. I'll be going with them this weekend to Seattle. And, the Red Sox don't have the hitting that the Yankees have, quite frankly. The Red Sox, David Price put up a good effort. He's obviously learned something. He's toughened up a little bit. He's speeding up his delivery. But I've been down on Tanaka since day one. Pineda too, of course. But I saw some things from Tanaka last night where he actually figured some things out halfway through the game. If he can consistently bring that, then I think with Severino doing what he's doing, if Tanaka can be a little better, they trade for a pitcher. And Judge is the ultimate leader. I mean, anybody who's read any of my Judge stuff this year knows I've been on this kid since 2015 as going to be a great player while nobody else in baseball saw it. And he's just a perfect he's exactly what you want in a leader, an approach. He's a larger Derek Jeter, but even more team. I would say he's even more team-oriented than Jeter, which is hard to believe, but that's the kind of kid he is. So the Yankees, in my mind, will be right in there. Most writers are saying they're going to fade. I don't think they'll fade.
Does Aaron Judge fade, or does his numbers drop off drastically?
Not drastically, but, it's going to be hard to keep up what he does. But I have to laugh. Everybody's talking about the slump he's in the post. And home run, I get it. Home run derbies really beat you up. It's a tough thing to do. And he kind of messes up your swing a little bit. But he did his same swing. You saw where the home runs went. They went everywhere. That's what he does. But everybody's saying about the slump he's in, and he went hitless in game 2. Well, you know what he did? He hit a ball like 400 and whatever, 30 feet, 20 feet. That would have been a home run anywhere in the world, except, JBJ makes an unbelievable catch, times it perfectly. So he would have had a game-winning home run, basically. So Yeah, he's a special hitter. He made some great adjustments with his leg kick. I know ESPN last night they were talking about his hands and some other things, but the real difference is his leg kick, and don't let anybody fool you on that one.
Kevin, you mentioned David Price's name and how he pitched last night, but we've talked to some Boston beat writers, and we've talked a little bit about, you know, the conflict between Price and some Boston media members. I'm wondering how candid you can be with us on this subject. Who is the most difficult player you've ever covered, and who's the best or most refreshing player you've ever covered?
Probably Matt Harvey, and I'm always pretty candid. And in the Price, I saw this more Price. I always got along good with Price. But I remember somebody telling me years ago that when he becomes a free agent, he'll probably want to go to Atlanta because he likes that kind of atmosphere. He obviously took the money, but he'd be better suited in Atlanta. But, you know, there's been so many difficult guys, but difficult is different from generation. You got to remember, I'm much older, even though I act and sound young. You know, I remember standing in front of Reggie Jackson getting all kinds of grief at Thurman Munson in a fun way, but it was a test. I would say the most difficult player these days, without a doubt, I'd put two guys in there. I would say Matt Harvey and Noah Syndergaard. Both actually think they're cartoon characters, you know, and Harvey, you know, even Harvey, I'll give you one small story. You know, Harvey pitches well midway, and there was a game where he pitched really well, and he's kind of like, he's very negative with the media, never really says much. And some guys he may like, but for the most part, he doesn't treat them well. And so I went on 2 days after he had pitched. The day after he pitched, he doesn't show up in the clubhouse. The next day I see him, I walk over to him and a compliment. I say, hey, you did some good things there, you know, blah, blah, blah. He goes, yeah, thanks, and he walks right away. I mean, he's got no, you know, so to me, and I don't put up with these guys anymore. Even yesterday, Syndergaard walked around the media to get to the one guy he likes in the media who works for the Mets. You know, grow up, you know, do some good things, take a little criticism and move forward. And I don't care if they talk to me or not. And you know what? It makes my job easier sometimes when they don't talk to me.
I couldn't agree more with you, Kevin. I skew a little old myself. I've been doing this for a long time. And as the years have gone on, the patience of even myself with some of these pro athletes. I mean, I'll go to Giants camp this summer and they'll tell me that we're going to get Odell Beckham Jr. And then I'll go back a week later and a week later and I still don't get the interview with Odell Beckham just because Odell doesn't feel like doing the interview. You know, I really grow tired of that.
Of course. And football players, to be quite honest, Roger, they're probably hockey players are the easiest to deal with, but football players, for the most part, are pretty easy to deal with. The problem is that in the layers of public relations, and you're getting it now in every sport, they insulate. They think they have to. It's middle management. It's kind of like government. They have to make themselves important, so they deflect it. You're better off. Like when I did a Clint Frazier piece this off season, I totally avoided the Yankees. Just got Clint Frazier's phone number on my own. Spoke to him down in Instructional League. And met up with him in Atlanta. It was the easiest thing in the world. Now, if I got a team, not just saying the Yankees, but if I got the team involved with that player interview, I probably would never have gotten it. Right. And meanwhile, the player is very honest, and he's a good kid. And you know, I would say mostly players. I would say players now are, in some ways, they're easier to deal with because they give you their phone numbers. That never used to happen that much in the past. And but some of them, because of the situation they're in, they actually. It's the old story. They believe, and they're around social media, yes people that just say yes to everything. I've always found, and I've had this conversation many times with players, that players are really honest with the media and sometimes build a relationship with writers that cover the team on a regular basis and really can go off the record with them. That can help them. That can benefit them because they can vent a little, as long as you get guys you can trust. Now, the other side of that coin is, the media is not so great these days either, Roger, let's face it.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of guys you can't trust. So I get where they're coming from in that respect. But I've had very good relationships with players, even A-Rod. And you know, and I've always been up front with them and told them what I felt. And if guys like Syndergaard and Harvey had really reacted to that in a positive way, maybe they wouldn't be making the stupid mistakes they make and not getting an MRI or Harvey being Harvey on page 6 more than he's on the mound. So, but that's, you know, I don't worry about it, but that's the way of the world these days.
Kevin, we appreciate a few minutes here in Albany. You do great work. I've been reading your columns for many, many years, and I'm sure we'll get back in touch. But thanks for popping on this morning.
Always good to be with you guys, and maybe I'll see Chris at a future Yankee game.
I hope so,
There you
man.
go.
I hope
Sounds
so.
good.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.